Hey folks, welcome back to the channel. Hopefully you had a great Christmas and Happy New Year to each and every one of you. Surely appreciate everyone's support here on the channel, guys, and looking forward to the new year. Today, guys, we're going to talk about two of the biggest terms, I guess, or abbreviation that you hear, especially this time of the year when everybody is getting amped up to start some habitat projects and improvements. So terms or abbreviations that really tie to the workload, if you will, the tree work and some of the improvements that we do. So first and foremost, guys, I had released a couple of videos leading up to this a couple weeks ago that talked about TSI and FSI. So the definition of these two, to me, we have to make sure that we are treating them separately, right? And we have to understand the ins and outs of each one of them. Because sadly, what happens in the industry, whether you're watching a forestry channel or whether you're watching someone that's talking about improving whitetail habitat, a lot of times, a lot of folks just use the TSI as kind of a one-hat-fits-all. And that's not what we want to do. And the reason for that is, guys, each one of these has a place. So what we need to be able to do is we need to be able to be very direct on what we're ordering, right? What we're prescribing for that situation. Again, like I'm saying, guys, is what I'm seeing around the country as a whole, no matter what one of those channels or what you're watching, is they're just covering it all with a TSI blanket. So the problem lies in am talking about TSI in certain areas and FSI in another, and then you flip on the channels someone else's channel, whether it's a deer hunting channel or not, and you hear, you just need to do TSI throughout your entire property or in your bedding areas, and that'll cure the problem. That's not the case. So let's dive into this, guys, and really bring this to the surface. The term TSI, guys, is this: timber stand improvement. I'm not the one that coined that slogan, that term. No one else in the hunting industry came up with that. That is a old logging term, forestry logging term that was brought to the forefront years and years and years ago through the practice of managing for timber. Hence the word, right? Timber stand improvement. The timber part of that, guys, is the dead giveaway. Timber, when you are managing for timber, you are managing for big, beautiful timber, boards per foot, right? The biggest, the best that your property can produce for years to come. The timber is the tree itself, the big timber. The stand is the area, the acreage that it's within. The timber's the tree. The stand is the acreage within that the tree is within, and the improvement is what you're doing to that area to get the timber and the stand to produce, right? That is the term. So here's the problem. What lies in this whole deal is when you flip on these channels and they're telling you to do TSI in deer bedding worthy areas, that's not what you want to prescribe for that area. TSI is not FSI. TSI is maybe producing this big tree top, large canopy, releasing a little bit of sunlight between each tree, but exposing the sunlight to the forest floor and getting a bunch of nutrients to get those bigger trees to grow the best. That's not what we're looking for in deer bedding areas. You can, by releasing the canopy, you're going to put some of the sunlight to the floor. It is going to regenerate, but it's not FSI, right? Timber stand is for timber. Timber stand improvement should be where your access is at. So let's dive into that one before we go into FSI. Timber stand improvement, guys. Let's say, just using square properties, right? Let's say you own a 40 and your 40 is completely square. And let's say this is where you end up having your transition that we speak of, and we promote a line of travel 360 degrees around the farm, and you have your access maybe all the way around. Just for teaching purposes, let's just say we have access 360 degrees around the farm on the fence row, right? This area in here, this rim, if you will, guys, is your TSI area. So timber stand improvement. Bigger timber means bigger canopy, means less habitat, less production, deer-worthy food and bedding on the forest floor. That's big, beautiful timber, TSI, timber stand improvement. This area here, guys, should be your TSI areas. Your timber stand improvement should be where your access is at. Now, if you're in ridge country, you may have a portion of this that you have a ridge with no food that you have internal access. So that as well would be timber, TSI area. So in other words, this blue area, guys, this rim around the property that has something to do with your access from your stand location back to the outside of the property line should be your timber stand improvement, your TSI areas. So you flip the channel on and they're telling you to go do habitat improvements and do TSI. It gets a lot of folks confused. Like, okay, Josh says to do TSI on the outside. You're telling me to do TSI in deer bedding areas. What happens is this all becomes the same. There's no difference. It has to be different. The applications are two totally different procedures in two totally different areas. If you put them together, if you just use timber stand improvement as this blanket term, which is being thrown around out there by folks that should know better, if you throw this out there, this is what gets folks in trouble. That's why you have to watch who you're watching, who you're taking this advice from, because most of these folks that are using the TSI, timber stand improvement word, have never implemented it on a piece of property. Or if they have, they are sending so many mixed signals to people when they go to build it. There's no definition break between what they're trying to accomplish. Then they get a phone call. I actually had a forester the other day tell me that he was all upset because he told folks to do TSI and they built their property, and then they called him back and were upset because they did TSI and they should have did FSI. Why? Is because he told them to do all TSI. He should have told them to do TSI in one spot and FSI in the other, right? So TSI, remember, anything to do with your access, non-deer areas should be your TSI. Can you log these areas? Yes, eventually. If you never cut another stick of timber, guys, off that TSI area that has something to do with your access, you're not doing yourself any harm. You're actually doing yourself a lot of favor. I always tell folks this, is if you take someone that's either a deer, whether they're a deer hunter or not, or if you get them in a side-by-side and you're taking them around the property to show them the property, if you're on the external of your property, the goal is to have them say, wow, that's big, beautiful timber. If that's what they say, that pertains to your access, you know that you're in the chips, right? You know that you're working towards a production property, meaning less habitat allows you to get into the stand location, allows you to get into this spot right here, this tree stand, and blow your wind back into non-deer areas, right? That's the expression that you should get from someone that, like I said, whether they're a deer hunter or not. If you get them in the buggy here, side by side, and you're taking them for a ride and they say, holy crap, that's thick in there, you know you got a lot of work to do, because that means that your deer-worthy habitat is pushed all the way out to the outside. These stands now have to be right on the fence row, which we don't recommend, so you're not being unneighborly. You have to be able to have that break, guys. So that is TSI. So if you hear me talk about TSI, guys, that's why I break them into two separate portions. TSI, timber stand improvement. Wherever you want to manage for boards per foot, make sure that you're focused on TSI. That probably makes sense now to a lot of you. Now, we're going to take this same thing, guys. We're going to flip it over here on FSI. We're going to take the same 40. We're going to take the same layout all the way around the property with our promoted line of travel. Now what we have is we have this rim that we talked about here with TSI. Now we're going to talk about FSI, right? We're going to talk about FSI, forest stand improvement. Forest stand improvement, FSI, forest stand improvement. You're allowing more daylight than you would in a timber stand. You're actually select cutting that area that stand harder to let more daylight into the forest floor, you're promoting the forest floor into a better stand of non-timber. We're not focused on the timber so much in these areas. We're talking about more forbs and forages, deer-worthy food, probably twice as much, 3 times as much as you're dealing with the timber side of it. You're looking at the forest floor, forest stand improvement. You're improving that forest floor, putting all of the groceries 3 foot and below as much as you possibly can. Is it clear cut? No. Does it happen? Yes. TSI area guide to the outside, FSI to the inside. So your FSI is where your deer worthy areas, your core, should be. There's 3 stages to this, right? So this is where you want your FSI. Everywhere from your promoter line of travel in. So this area, guys, is your FSI area. Has more daylight to the core than your TSI. More groceries to where we want more of the deer more of the time, right? Most of the deer more of the time. That is your forest floor, your forest stand improvement. So will you ever say FSI, go in and do a bunch of FSI on the property without knowing these 2 breaks? No. If anybody tells you to do that, TSI covers everything, FSI covers everything. That's not what you want. There has to be a break, right? So remember, access has something to do with TSI, has something to do with your access. Your FSI has everything to do with deer and deer only. Now, so I'm going to break this down for you. TSI, guys, should be managed for big, beautiful timber, right? Your big timber. It should be, so maybe depending on the species, if we're talking about oak or hard maple or hickory or walnut, you're probably looking in that 20 inches plus in your TSI areas, right? Your FSI areas, guys, could be, you could potentially be doing some hinge cuts. Your FSI area, you want this down to, you want the logger to initially take it down to either 14 to 16 inches, something like that, down to 14 or 16 inches. So this whole area has a bunch of 14 and 16 inch trees left. So this is big, beautiful timber. This is good timber, but a lot more open with a lot more vegetation to the forest floor. So those are the 2 breaks, right? TSI, FSI. The third part of this, guys, is this. When we go in to build these areas, so I'm going to use red so I don't get you confused with a food plot situation. We go in here, we want, after we get, where our stands are at, and we know where, so licking branches and stands all the way around the property, X's being licking branches, red dots being your stands, right? Something like this. We then know what we have in between these areas to create more, even more habitat worthy, more structure than FSI got us. So can you go in and just do TSI and FSI and have a edge to follow, and is that good? It's great. You're about 75% of the way there. But when you polish it off, guys, you know where your stand locations are. You know where the line of travel. It's cut harder to the inside, not cut at all, or really, really lightly cut to the outside. Then what you do is you go into these areas and you promote. Once you know which side of the line of travel you need to promote them on, you're actually taking these areas down even further than your 14 and 16 inches. And the reason for these is, this is how you steer deer, right? These areas have to be even less. These areas are the areas that you want to do you want to end up doing your hinge cutting, stuff like that. Can you have some hinge cuts in the inside? Yes, as long as they connect to your stands. Maybe mulch a trail in here, blow a big, eighth of an acre, something like that. 2/10 of an acre, something like this, from your stand locations in to these buck bedding, more internal areas. Absolutely. Just do not go in here, guys, though, and take these areas right here. I'm going to outline these in green, but don't take these areas, guys, and just start doing a bunch of hinge cuts throughout the entire area that don't pertain to those areas. You have to have a break. Your hinge cuts should pertain to here, in your habitat pockets, and it should pertain to your internal potential buck bedding, not solid hinge cutting, because you don't want to create this jungle, right? You don't want to create this mess. So this, guys, is where all of your this hinge cutting, if you're a hinge cut candidate at all, these green areas are where your structure needs to be put down even further. So remember, big beautiful timber, 24 veneer stuff, big beautiful timber. FSI, down, select cut it down to 14 or 16 inches, the core. This is the core. This is external excess. So that's why I separate the two terms, TSI and FSI. Hope that makes sense, guys. Just remember, when you flip on a channel and they're telling you to do TSI and they're talking about deer-worthy stuff, go to the next channel, because they obviously don't know why they need to separate the two of them. It's a big, big thing that sadly a lot of the, maybe not so many of the consultant side of it, but a lot of the big land managers, I guess I should say, are just putting these big terms. This TSI covers everything. Timber stand improvement is what you need to do to your bedding areas and make deer-worthy areas, and that's not the term that you need to use. TSI is not FSI, right? And then you go to the third point of going even further past FSI to make better deer-worthy, more structure, possibly through hinge cutting, stuff like that. So guys, just wanted to touch on here, very, very, very important piece, so you understand the lingo, so you don't get confused on what someone is trying to prescribe for your property. Thanks, guys.